What did you mean by like deep learning? Because
Yeah.
I listen to that, and what do you really see in sports and the idea of learning deep? Can you transfer that to other areas of your life?
That's actually the whole point of deep learning. So
Yeah.
when I say deep learning, I'm using a kind of a distinction between superficial and deep. So there's a concept called transformative learning, and transformative learning is sort of like the way in which I make sense of this. It's what are the assumptions that you make about the world? What are the assumptions that you make about many of our most important things? And how can we actually facilitate a change in those assumptions to make your life more manageable, more in alignment with your goals, more in congruence with where life is going? So to give you an example, I mean, I think growth mindset is really one of the most obvious ways to think about deep learning. So like if you ask yourself an important question, which is, do you believe that your ability is fixed? Do you believe that ability can be changed? And if you believe that ability is fixed, you may not even realize you believe that. That may be just something that sort of like exists behind you, right? It may be invisible to you on a daily basis, but it shows itself in the way in which you respond to situations. So if you don't make that team, or you don't get that job, or you get a poor grade, and you immediately react by saying, gosh, I must not be very good, or must not be very smart, or
Mm.
must not be very intelligent, you may be making an assumption about ability, that that this is all that it is. But if you believe that it can be changed, you might say, well, you might respond to that situation differently. And so deep learning is basically trying to create conditions where people can actually identify those assumptions, deal with them, critically reflect on them, and then get them to potentially change them or experiment with new ones. And so doing that is quite challenging work, but it is doable. And what it requires is to create certain conditions as a coach or a parent where you're facilitating these sort of deeper conversations. A lot of it is conversational. How do you get people to reflect on things that are mostly invisible to them? And that's the kind of work that I really like doing. And I've done a lot of it now with parents and coaches as well, particularly in the world of sport, because the world of sport is we have a lot of assumptions,
Yeah.
right? We make a lot of assumptions. Like the other one that's really big is like what are your assumptions about the nature of success? Like what does it mean to be successful?
Mm.
And how many people really step back and actually reflect on that normally? There might be a situation you're put in that forces you to be like, oh wow, my whole life I've been led to believe this, and I never really realized it until this happened, and now I have to kind of re-examine all those things again. That might be, we call those things disorienting dilemmas, because disorienting dilemmas really like kind of startle you and push you back and force you to reflect on a world that you maybe hadn't previously reflected on,
Mm.
which is your inner thoughts and your deepest beliefs that you maybe don't normally think about.
Yeah. So yeah, you talked about deep learning, but how does someone develop that?
Mm.
How does someone, yeah, think critically, think deeply, and like you said, assess this situation, understand their sort of inner thoughts and how they are responding to things. Because it's such an abstract
Yeah, it is.
topic.
Right. Yeah.
But what are some the practical
Yeah.
steps? Like I'm listening to it and I like realize, oh shit, I have some things that
That's
I usually do.
interesting. Right.
Like how does someone do that?
It's an important question, because these things can get very abstract. So for me, I think the first thing is, we want to be thinking very importantly about reflection as a habit. All right. So do you reflect as a habit, as part of your daily, weekly, monthly process? And what do you reflect on? So there's a guy named, I would really encourage the listeners to study a guy named David Allen, who has a system called Getting Things Done. And Getting Things Done is sort of like part productivity, part like critical reflection, life planning. And what David Allen talks about is being able to have conversations with yourself at multiple levels of perspective. So what I mean by that is, every day I need to be thinking about what's in front of me, right? What's currently here. Every week I need to be able to take a step back from that and look at my week. Why am I doing what I'm doing, and where am I at? And every month I need to take a step back from that and say, like, over the course of this month and the next few months, am I able to sort of like ask myself, why am I doing what I'm doing? deep learning is really a function of asking the question of why. Why am I doing what I'm doing, right? What's the purpose? What's the meaning? Why do we do this? And I think asking yourself on a regular basis why is actually probably the more tangible way to get into that, and systematically building that in. So like once a month, I do a monthly plan, and my monthly plan is a time to sit back and look at all the things that are in my field of vision at any given time. So it might be moving to a new place, starting this new project, having this new friend circle, getting my workouts in, you know, and I might once a month step back and try to catalog all those things and be clear on it and ask, should I be continue to be doing all these things that I'm doing? What things do I need to change? If you don't ever stop and sit back and reflect and ask yourself, you know, like, am I doing the things that I want to be doing? Are the things that I'm doing in alignment with my goals? You will never be able to get into those kind of deep learning conversations that we're talking about, because you'll never really ever consciously reflect on kind of the big rocks of, you know, what direction you're going and what your destinations are. To me, when we think about a concept like deep learning or transformative learning or critical reflection on assumptions, what we're talking about is, you know, like how big do you think? You know, like how big do you think? And how big do you, what kind of questions do you think about when you're thinking? And I think we have a bit of a crisis right now, I think, of reflection, I personally think, in part because our days are really, really busy, and there's so much competition for attention. So
Do you mean we're very reactive to things, surroundings?
100%. Yeah. So it's like, are you familiar with Stephen Covey?
Yes.
Seven Habits.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So you know, he's got this really cool urgent, important matrix, right? And he talks about like the difference between, you know, urgent things, non-urgent things, important things, not important things. And you know, we would all agree that most of our time is spent in that sort of urgent, important space, right? Like, I got to be at this place. I got this meeting I got class I got to be at. I've got, you know, this really important, you know, social event I need to be there. I have to be there. This is really, really important. And we also, though, have other urgent things that maybe aren't so important that come into our world, like interruptions and, you know, phone notifications and constantly checking the, you know, the latest, you know, tweet or text or Instagram thing. And so what ends up happening is the urgent things easily dominate the important things, particularly the non-urgent important things. So if you think about reflection and reflecting on like why I'm doing what I'm doing, or planning or goal setting or any of those kind of things, those are important but not urgent, right? In the sense that
You can push it off.
You can push it off. Like, oh, I don't have to, you know, spend 45 minutes this Sunday, you know, reflecting on my goals for the next 6 months. I don't need to do that because there's no tangible repercussion now for me not doing it. But it's really important, isn't it?
Of course, yeah.
So I suppose it's about, my answer to your question is, you're never going to get into a critical reflection on your assumptions if you don't build reflection into your daily process, your weekly process, your monthly process.